And you have gathered here not merely to hear words, but to enter into an atmosphere of depth where the ordinary dissolves and the hidden truths of the psyche come alive. I speak to you as one who has spent a lifetime listening to the whispers of the unconscious, to the cries that emerge from the dreams of humanity, and to the silent tremors of the soul that reveal themselves when the mask of the persona is stripped away. The invitation into darkness. There comes a moment in every soul's life when words no longer suffice. When arguments, explanations, and cries dissolve into a silence so heavy it feels like death itself. This is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of confrontation, the silence that emerges when the empath stands before the narcissist. Perhaps you know this silence. Perhaps you have lived it. The aching stillness when you realize your giving has become endless, and yet the hunger of the other never ceases. Friends, this is not merely a personal tragedy. It is an ancient drama, an archetypal story woven into the fabric of the collective unconscious. The empath, the wounded healer, the one whose heart bleeds with the cries of others. The narcissist, the false king, the devouring shadow who builds a mask of grandeur over an abyss of shame. They are drawn together like moth and flame, mirror and mask, not by choice, but by fate. And yet, there is a hidden weapon, a power so subtle, so terrifying, that it can undo the very game upon which the narcissist thrives. That weapon is silence. But silence, my friends, is no easy path. For to choose silence is to step into the abyss, to face abandonment, invisibility, the terror of being unloved. And yet, only by entering this abyss can the empath discover the self that was waiting all along. Tell me, have you felt this silence within yourself? Have you tasted both its fear and its strange, mysterious power? The archetypal battle. The stage is set, but not on the surface of daily life. This is not just you and another person in conflict. No, it is the theater of the soul. The empath and the narcissist are not simply roles, they are archetypes. The empath, bearer of wounds, healer of others, and tenor of unspoken suffering. The narcissist, the devouring shadow, the trickster, the false king crowned in mirrors. And what binds them together? A magnetic law of the unconscious. For what we do not face within ourselves, we are fated to meet in another. If you are an empath, your childhood taught you to read storms in silence, to soothe anger before it erupted, to survive by becoming invisible and useful. Thus, when you meet the narcissist, their hunger feels hauntingly familiar. It is not new, it is ancient, a labyrinth already carved inside your soul. The narcissist, by contrast, cannot endure silence. For silence threatens to reveal the void beneath their mask. Their words, their charm, their demands, all are fortresses of noise built against the unbearable emptiness within. They seek mirrors, not partners, adoration, not intimacy. And you, the empath, are the perfect mirror, reflecting light that is not yours, feeding a hunger that can never be satisfied. But here, at last, the pattern can be broken. For when the empath chooses silence, everything changes. No longer do you reflect. No longer do you feed the illusion. You become like the dark moon, present, but refusing to shine borrowed light. And to the narcissist, this silence is unbearable. Their fortress crumbles. Their mask cracks. For what can they twist when there are no words? What can they devour when nothing is given? And yet, this silence is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is the silence of initiation. The silence of one who has entered Hades, and returned with wisdom. Tell me, listener, have you ever felt the raw terror of holding silence before someone who demanded your energy? And deeper still, can you sense how that silence, though frightening, is also your shield, your hidden sword? Silence as the weapon of transformation. To the narcissist, silence feels like death. It strips them of control, exposes the abyss they have spent their lives concealing. But to the empath, silence becomes something far more mysterious. It becomes a sanctuary. In silence, you are no longer the mirror, no longer the endless giver pouring into a vessel riddled with holes. Instead, you step outside the script. You stop playing the role written for you in the ancient drama. And though fear rises, the fear of abandonment, of being unseen, unloved, something else stirs in that stillness. A forgotten strength. A voice beneath all voices that whispers simply, "You are." This silence is not submission, it is sovereignty. It is the empath standing at the threshold of individuation, no longer defined by another's hunger, but by the deep center of the self. Think of myth. Persephone descends into the underworld and returns holding the pomegranate seed, no longer naive, but initiated. So too, the empath who wields silence becomes changed. They return from the underworld of manipulation with a seed of sovereignty. This silence cuts without blade, defends without shield. It is the unspoken truth that disarms illusions. The narcissist, deprived of mirrors, sees not their imagined radiance, but the void within. And the empath, for the first time, sees themselves. But here lies the question. Can you endure that silence? Can you sit with the trembling child within, the one who has always feared invisibility? For if you can, that silence will not devour you. It will transform you. Tell me, dear soul, what would happen if you too refused to explain, to justify, to soothe, and instead chose the stillness that reveals who you truly are? The archetypes awaken. Hermit, warrior, child, shadow. When silence deepens, something extraordinary stirs within the soul. The empath does not fall into emptiness. They awaken an inner council of archetypes, each one bearing a hidden truth. The hermit, the warrior, the child, the shadow. Each appears within, each whispers strength. The hermit teaches that solitude is not emptiness but illumination. The warrior reveals that silence itself can be a stance of power. The child learns that silence is not abandonment, but presence. And the shadow, once feared, returns with raw energy, vitality, fire. Together, they form the empath's inner council. Together, they transform silence from a wound into a weapon, from a curse into a sacrament. And remember, the narcissist cannot bear this silence. Their mask trembles, their fortress of words crumbles. They rage, they provoke, yet they cannot feed on what is not offered. Tell me, which of these archetypes is stirring within you now? Silence as death and rebirth. To enter silence is to step into a chrysalis, a place where the old self dissolves, where identity melts away. From the outside, it looks like nothing: withdrawal, absence, stillness. But inside, the soul is breaking its old form. The false self is dying. This is why silence burns like fire. It feels like rejection. It feels like annihilation. But nakedness, my friends, is initiation. Only when the old garments fall can the true self stand revealed. Dreams at this stage show coffins, funerals, crumbling houses, not omens of death, but symbols of transformation. And then, a flower opening, a butterfly breaking free, rebirth hidden within apparent death. This is the paradox of silence. What feels like death is rebirth. What feels like emptiness is the womb of presence. The narcissist fears this silence, for it reveals their void. The empath fears this silence, for it dissolves their identity. But for the one who endures, silence becomes the crucible of individuation. The moment when the false self dies and the deeper self is born. Tell me, have you ever felt something dying in you, only to discover it was the birth of a truer life? Silence as sacred ground. Silence is not emptiness, it is sacred ground. The mystics knew it. The Buddha beneath the tree, Christ before his accusers, the desert fathers in the wilderness, so too the empath. In silence, they hear not the cries of others, but the voice of the self, and beyond it, the whisper of the eternal. To the narcissist, silence is rejection. To the empath, silence is revelation. What terrifies one liberates the other. Every pause strengthens a new truth. I exist apart from your hunger. My worth is not defined by what I give. My being is whole in itself. This silence is not only psychology, it is initiation. It is the holy of holies. Tell me, when was the last time you let silence speak to you? The final transformation. Silence, once unbearable, becomes rhythm. In silence, illusions fall away. In speech, truth returns, simple and unshakable. The empath is free, no longer mirror, no longer victim, but sovereign, bearer of their own light. The narcissist was never the true enemy. They were only the shadow, the catalyst, the unwilling midwife. The real battle was always within. Now in silence, the empath emerges whole. So I tell you, enter silence as you would a sacred temple. Let it strip away the false. Let it awaken the hermit, the warrior, the child, the shadow, and the self. For silence is not the end. It is the beginning, the chrysalis, the crucible, the holy of holies, the voice of eternity speaking without words. And when you emerge, you will carry a strength no mask can touch, a light no shadow can devour. You will know the deepest truth of all, that you are whole, that you have always been whole, that nothing and no one can diminish the radiance of the self. Now I turn to you. What is your silence trying to teach you? What part of your soul is waiting to awaken in that stillness? Type it in the comments below. My silence is showing me. And complete the sentence with your truth. And if this journey has spoken to your soul, subscribe. For here, we walk together into the descent, the awakening, the path of individuation. For the Red Book is not only Jung's story, it is yours. And silence is the doorway through which you will finally meet yourself.